3 weeks after my wife passed, I found her journal in the bottom drawer of her nightstand, tucked underneath a cardigan she used to wear on cold mornings. I almost didn't open it. I thought I knew everything about the woman I had shared 41 years with. I was wrong. Her name was Miriam. She was 63 years old when she died of a stroke in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon in October, while I was out picking up her prescription from the Shoppers Drug Mart on Elgin Street. She was gone before the paramedics arrived. I came home to a house that felt like it had already started forgetting her. I'm 67. I spent 30 years as a land surveyor for the province of Ontario. I know how to read maps, boundaries, legal descriptions. I know what belongs to whom and where the lines are drawn. What I did not know for nearly 2 years before my wife died was that someone had been trying to erase those lines, quietly, legally on the surface, and with the full cooperation of people I trusted completely. The journal was small, dark green, the kind you find at a chapter's. Miriam wasn't a dramatic woman. She kept grocery lists in there, notes about her garden, reminders about doctor appointments. But near the back, the last 30 or 40 pages, her handwriting changed. It became smaller, tighter, more deliberate, like she was trying to fit a lot of words into a small space without anyone noticing. I sat down on the edge of the bed and started reading. By the time I reached page 12 of those back entries, my hands had stopped working properly. I had to set the journal down on my knee and just breathe for a minute. My wife had been watching our son-in-law for 8 months before she died. His name is Theodore. My daughter, our daughter Claire, had been married to him for 11 years. He was an investment advisor in Ottawa, well-dressed, easy with a smile, the kind of man who always picks up the check at dinner and makes sure everyone notices. I never disliked him exactly. I just never quite trusted the way he laughed too quickly at his own jokes. Miriam used to say I was being unfair. Turns out she had her own doubts all along. She just kept them quieter than I did. The journal entry started in February, about 14 months before she died. She had been going through some of our financial documents. She handled our household accounts, always had, because she was better at it than me, and she found a discrepancy in the records connected to a joint savings account we had set up with Claire and Theodore during the pandemic. It was meant to be an emergency fund, a place we could park some money in case either family hit a rough patch. We had put in $80,000. The idea was that neither party could withdraw without a signature from both sides. Miriam found a record of a withdrawal. $42,000 moved to an account she didn't recognize. The signature line had my name on it. I had never signed anything. She didn't come to me. I've thought about that a lot since. Why didn't she come to me? I think I know the answer now. She was afraid of what I would do. She knew me well enough to know that I would have gone straight to Theodore, probably raised my voice, possibly destroyed Claire's marriage on the basis of a single document before she had enough evidence to be certain. Miriam was methodical. She wanted to be sure, so she started digging on her own. The journal entries read like a slow-motion horror film. She contacted our bank branch manager, a woman she had known for years, someone she trusted, and asked about the withdrawal process for that type of joint account. She was told, carefully, that it was unusual for a withdrawal that size to be processed with only one signature, and that if she wanted to file a formal inquiry, she should speak to the fraud department. Miriam thanked her and wrote her name down in the journal with a small star beside it. She didn't go to the fraud department yet. Not then. Instead, she started going through everything, every account, every registered savings plan, every investment certificate, every piece of paper in the filing cabinet in our basement. What she found over the next 3 months made the $42,000 look like a small problem. Theodore had been slowly redirecting portions of our retirement income, not large amounts at once, nothing that would set off an alarm. Small transfers, between $3,000 and $8,000 at a time, moved through a numbered company registered in Alberta. Miriam had no idea what the company was. She wrote its registration number in the journal and underlined it twice. She had also been watching what happened to those transfers. Some of it she couldn't trace, but enough of it she could. Money was flowing into a cottage property on the eastern shore of Lake Simcoe, registered in Theodore's name alone. A property Claire had never mentioned to us. A property, Miriam noted in her tight, careful handwriting, that had been purchased during the same month. Theodore had told Claire the family finances were too tight for her to take a continuing education course she had wanted to do. I had to put the journal down again at that point. I walked downstairs and stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring out at the backyard. The bird feeder Miriam had put up in the spring was still full. She had filled it the week before she died. I went back upstairs and kept reading. What Miriam had written in the last entries, the ones from the month before she died, was the most difficult to get through. Not because of what Theodore had done, because of what she had discovered about Claire. My daughter is 40 years old. She works as a physiotherapist. She is smart, careful, and not naive. And Miriam had begun to suspect in those final weeks that Claire knew more than she was letting on. It wasn't anything definitive. Miriam was honest about that. But there were small things. A comment Claire had made at Thanksgiving about their finances suddenly being more stable. A reluctance to discuss the joint account when Miriam had gently raised it over the phone. A weekend trip Claire and Theodore had taken to a property near Barrie in September. A trip they described as visiting friends, but which matched exactly the location of the Lake Simcoe cottage Miriam had been tracking. Miriam wrote, in her last entry, dated October 3rd, "I don't know if Claire is part of this, or if she has been lied to as badly as we have. I need more time. I'm going to call Bernard at the legal clinic on Monday. She died on a Tuesday. She never made that call." I sat with that journal for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. I made coffee at 2 in the morning and sat at the kitchen table and tried to decide what I was dealing with. My son-in-law had been systematically stealing from us. That much seemed clear. My daughter might have known. That was less clear. And my wife had spent 8 months trying to protect us, both of us, me and Claire, quietly, carefully, without saying a word, because she was trying to be certain before she broke something that couldn't be unbroken. I did not call Claire that night. That may have been the hardest decision I have ever made. In the morning, I called my brother in Kingston. He's a retired RCMP officer, 30 years on the force. I trust him more than almost anyone alive. I told him what I had read. I heard him go very quiet on the other end of the line. He asked me to read him the numbered company registration. He told me not to touch anything, not to move any money, not to say a word to Claire or Theodore, and to get myself a family law and fraud specialist lawyer before the week was out. He also said something I've thought about every day since. He said, "She was trying to protect you both. Make sure what you do next honors that." I found a lawyer in Ottawa, a woman who had handled both estate fraud and family financial cases for over 20 years. I brought her the journal, photocopies of every document Miriam had flagged, and a very long list of questions. She read through everything carefully. When she looked up, she said, "Your wife did the work of a forensic investigator. This is a strong file." Over the next 6 weeks, working with her and with a forensic accountant she brought in, we reconstructed what had happened. The total amount diverted from our accounts, through the joint savings, through redirected investment income, through a fraudulent power of attorney document filed 8 months earlier that I had known nothing about, came to just over $220,000. The power of attorney document was what changed everything from a civil matter to a criminal one. Theodore had filed a document claiming I had granted him authority to manage certain financial matters on my behalf during a period when I had supposedly been ill. I had never been ill. I had never signed that document. A handwriting analyst would later confirm the signature was forged, My lawyer filed a report with the Ottawa Police Service's Financial Crimes Unit. She also reached out through proper channels to the Law Society of Ontario because Theodore held a license he used in part to facilitate these transactions. Then came the part I had been dreading since the night I found the journal. Claire. My lawyer advised me that the investigation would likely come to Claire regardless of what I did. The question was whether I wanted her to hear it from me first or from police. I chose to tell her myself. I drove to their house on a Wednesday evening in December, 4 months after Miriam died. I asked Theodore to step out. He hesitated. I looked at him in a way I had been practicing for 4 months, and he stepped out. I sat across from my daughter at the kitchen table she had bought at IKEA 12 years ago, and I put Miriam's journal down between us. I said, "Your mother found something before she died. I need you to read it." I watched my daughter read. I watched the exact moment she turned the page and got to the entries about the cottage. Her face went completely still, not the stillness of someone hearing news for the first time. A different kind of still. The stillness of someone hearing confirmed what they had almost managed to convince themselves wasn't true. She started crying before she finished the last entry. She told me she had known something was wrong. She said she had found a bank statement on Theodore's desk 8 months earlier for an account she didn't recognize, and that when she asked him about it, he had told her it was a client account he was managing, and she had chosen to believe him. She said the word chosen herself. She didn't try to make it sound accidental. I don't know if I fully believe her even now. That's a terrible thing to admit about your own child. But I also know that my wife, who loved Claire more than anything, had written that she wasn't sure either, and that Miriam had still been trying to find a way to protect her. Theodore was arrested in February. He was charged with fraud over $5,000, forgery, and breach of trust. His license was suspended pending the investigation. The Lake Simcoe cottage, purchased with our money, was flagged as a proceed of crime. His lawyer has been negotiating steadily since then. I'm told a trial date is likely to be set before the end of this year. Claire has moved back to Ottawa, into an apartment near the Glebe. She filed for divorce in March. We have had several long and very uncomfortable conversations. We are not where we were before all of this, and I don't know if we will ever get back there entirely. But she came over last month, and we raked the backyard together, and I filled the bird feeder, and neither of us said very much. And it felt, for the first time in a long time, like something that might eventually be okay. The money is largely gone. Some of it may be recovered through the civil proceedings. My lawyer is cautiously optimistic. I have enough to live on. I own the house outright. Miriam made sure of that. There is something I keep coming back to, in the quiet of the evenings when the house is too big and too silent. My wife knew something was very wrong. She spent 8 months building a case, quietly, carefully, protecting both me and our daughter while we had no idea. She filled the bird feeder the week before she died. She had an appointment at a legal clinic for the Monday after her last entry. She ran out of time, but she left me the journal. I think about what Bernard in the legal clinic might have told her if she'd made that call. I think about what she would have done next. I think about how she would have sat across from Claire at that kitchen table, more gently than I did, with more patience than I have, and how she might have found a way to keep our family from shattering quite so completely. I did my best with what she left me. I followed the lines she had already drawn. All I had to do was not lose my temper long enough to let the law do what the law is supposed to do. Some days that was harder than others. What I know now, 67 years old and standing in a house that still smells like the lavender soap she ordered from a small shop in Prince Edward County, is that she was the sharpest person in any room she was ever in. She just never needed anyone to know it. She knew it. That was enough for her. It's enough for me too now, almost. The bird feeder is still out back. I filled it again this morning, the way Miriam used to on cold Saturdays, and I stood at the kitchen window for a while, just watching it. That's become a habit now, standing still long enough to think about what actually happened and why. What Theodore did was not complicated when you strip it down. He saw an opportunity. He calculated that no one was paying close enough attention, and he took it, slowly, carefully, in amounts small enough not to alarm anyone. He wasn't reckless, he was deliberate. And that deliberateness is what makes it hard to excuse. Not a moment of weakness, not a single bad decision, but a sustained choice, made over and over again for nearly 2 years. What strikes me now is not the anger, though that was there. What strikes me is how clearly the outcome followed from the choices everyone made. Theodore chose to deceive, and everything that followed, the arrest, the suspended license, the divorce, the cottage flagged as a proceed of crime, followed from that as directly as water follows a slope. He built something on a foundation of dishonesty, and when the weight of it became too much, it collapsed. That's not fate, that's just how things work. Miriam chose differently. She could have panicked. She could have confronted him immediately, or come to me, or done nothing and hoped it resolved itself. Instead, she did what she always did. She thought carefully, she gathered what she needed, she protected the people she loved, and she waited until she was sure. That kind of clear-headedness, that ability to keep your thinking clean even when you're frightened, is something I don't think I appreciated fully while she was alive. I see it differently now. It saved us. Not the money. Some of that is still gone. But the ability to act, to have something solid to stand on when the law needed evidence. That was her doing. I think about Claire too. She made a choice as well. Even if she would rather call it something else. She found that bank statement, and she chose the easier explanation. I understand it. 11 years of marriage, a life built together, the cost of believing the harder truth. I understand why she looked away. But understanding it doesn't change what it cost her. It cost her months of knowing, at some level, that something was wrong, and the particular exhaustion of keeping that knowledge at arm's length. There's a weight to that kind of avoidance. She carried it until she couldn't anymore. What I took from all of this, what I'm still taking from it slowly in the quiet of a house that's too big now, is that the people who come through hard things with their dignity intact are usually the ones who chose honesty over comfort, even when comfort was right there. Miriam did that. My brother did that when he told me exactly what I needed to hear instead of what I wanted to. Even Claire, eventually, sitting at that kitchen table, saying the word chosen herself, without flinching. That took something real. I'm 67. I've made my share of mistakes, and I likely make more. But I know this. The times I've been most at peace with myself are the times I've done what was right, even when it was inconvenient, thought clearly, even when I was scared, and kept going, even when I wanted to stop. Those 3 things don't guarantee anything. They didn't save Miriam. But they're the only tools I know that are actually worth passing on. She left me the journal. I'm still learning from it.